everyone. We are so happy to have you here with us. This is Kelley, and I am Tina, and this is Focus and Foundations. Kelley, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm Kelley Phipps, and I am the owner of a company called Empowering Minds. And I have a couple little things underneath it that we call Centerpoint Learning Solutions and the Tutoring Center. And in my company, we work with adults and kids that struggle with any number of learning or social issues that really stem from today's topic, stem from a sense of disorientation, and we help them. Tina, what do you do?
So I do something very similar to what you do, but I do it in a different way. I'm the creator of Simple Learning and also the patent pending sound device, and it increases focus. So I also work with adults and children. My youngest student was 8 years old. My oldest student was 58 years old. And I help people increase productivity, decrease stress through improved focus. And as Kelley said, our topic for today is disorientation. And Kelley, you said you had a perfect example of this. So lead us in.
All right. So when I was thinking about this today, it just brought me right back to a great memory. About 20 some odd years ago, about 20 years ago, we had a wonderful experience as a family to join my husband in the Middle East, and we lived in Qatar. And I had a bunch of little babies, and I'm in the midst of a whole different culture, which in and of itself is a little disorienting. So the definition of disorientation is simply when our senses tell us one thing and reality is something else. And I think that everyone has had an experience in their life of where they feel like they don't quite fit, that their presence doesn't necessarily fit the surroundings around them, and they're expected to be something or do something that they're not. And that in of itself gives us a feeling that's like, I don't know about that. All right. And if you notice the way I'm kind of saying it, it's a little confusion. How do
Yes.
I do this? So at the time, I had wonderful babies. My now 25-year-old was 5, and we had the opportunity for her to be in ballet lessons. Well, we were part of a Western community within an Arabic country. And there were certain things that you were expected to do there that you don't do in the United States. One is a woman didn't drive. So I had to arrange for a driver. Now, most Western individuals in these other countries, there's a certain level of affluence. But we are a family of 6. And yeah, not a whole lot of affluence, but I could pretend. I was really good at pretending. And so we got a chance for my daughter to be in ballet lessons. And the ballet lessons, whereas here in the States might be in a community building or something like that, this was in an older renovated villa. So a very beautiful, beautiful building that was set up to be a home originally and had been renovated, but it was something, again, out of the ordinary for our experience. And we had to use a driver. We did not have a personal driver, so we hired a taxi, but they don't call them taxis, they call them limousines. All right, so here we are arriving in our limousine. And we're individual community, Western community families, right? But we're not in the same interconnectivity. And so I was with individuals, families, mothers, or nannies of children that were British or other European. So we were the only Americans. We went and had the lesson, and then we all had to come out and wait for our drivers. So here's Mary and I waiting for our driver, our limo driver. And we didn't quite connect with these other women. Like, they didn't talk to us, so we weren't part of their group. And so we were off standing on our own, waiting out the very warm sun, although we were in the shade. So I proceeded, as we're standing on our own and these other women are off to the side, I proceeded to pull out my sunglasses and put them on. And I'm talking to Mary and we're waiting and so we're just there and the women are glancing our way and we're just waiting and Mary says to me, Mom, what's wrong with your eye? I said to her, what do you mean? She goes, what's wrong with your eyes? I said, Mary, I take off and I realize that, oh my gosh, look at me. So I just took a deep breath and I put my glasses back in my purse and we proceeded to wait. And then we got in our car and we drove away. So long story short is I was so involved in the persona I was trying to play. I had no clue that my sunglasses were broken. None. And it was so like, whoa to me. But, but I love that story because it was a true classic and it could have happened to anyone. It wasn't a Kelleyism. It could have happened to anyone. All right. There's times in our lives that we are so caught up in the moment that we're totally oblivious to other things around us. And then afterwards, we may or may not find out about it, or maybe we find out that we're the brunt of a huge joke and we had no clue, right? But that in and of itself is what disorientation is. Okay, it's when the facts and reality, or the facts being reality, and your situation don't match. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Kelley, I love that story. That was perfect. So part of our goal today is getting people to understand what a disorientation actually is, because I think a lot of people, well, in fact, I know we all disorient. However, per a specific type of learning style, a learning difference, disorientations, they tend to be they affect us more. And we can talk about disorientations as related to dyslexia, ADD, autism. And Kelley and I are just going to throw some examples out here from our clients in hopes that it helps you understand, the listener, what a disorientation really is. Because so oftentimes, if you experience disorientations, you get labeled. You get labeled with things like ditzy, dumb, clumsy, lazy. All right. And there is a reason why those things are happening. For myself, my first really big disorientation that I understood what a disorientation even was. Now, after I understood, I could go back and find all kinds of them in my life. But I was actually in a class where I was learning about disorientations and I was learning about dyslexia and reading. Interestingly enough, we had reading examples that we needed to do, and I made no mistakes whatsoever. My professor wasn't intelligent enough to know that I had trouble with reading at some point in time in my life, and I had learned how to control. Because he said it's not possible to read as much as you read and make absolutely no mistakes whatsoever. However, he knew, and he didn't say a word to me. So later on, we had moved on to disorientations associated with math. And I had a disorientation to the extent my mind left the room. Totally blank. I'm sure if you saw my face, I was white. Nothing was happening. I left the building. I left the universe. Truth be told, that probably only lasted for seconds. And I regained my composure. However, there was a concept that we were going over as related to math, and I still have challenges associated with sequencing. And they hit a point to where it was information that I totally disoriented on. I had no anchors to the information they were presenting. And so then that confusion, that feeling of confusion causes the disorientation. And then I went out to, and as I work with my clients, blank is a real thing. We talk about blank a lot, but I went totally blank. My mind, everything stopped. There was nothing there. It was blank. And then it depends. because for me, it was a matter of seconds, but some of the clients that we work with can go off into that state and it affects them physically. And it can cause a situation to where they have trouble coming back or they don't get all the way back. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that, like you said, it happens to everyone. It's a natural process that we have to go through. We actually have to disorient to sleep. We have to go into this other place so that we can shut our minds off long enough to fall asleep, right? And so the thing is that, at least what I look at, is that it's just super important to realize when one is disoriented and when one is not. When you are fully present and when you are not fully present. So that, and then the goal would be to be able to bring yourself back, right? To be able to bring yourself quickly back so that other people are, well, really, it doesn't really matter what other people think, although we kind of feel it, but it's more of so that we don't miss a beat, right? Because a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, actually, a lot can happen in that amount of time. And so we don't want to miss it. We don't want to miss something. So I was thinking, as you were speaking, Tina, about that aspect of, like you said, you draw a blank. And we all function in some level of visual world. Not for some individuals, it's really, really strong. Their ability to visualize is very strong. It is their strength. It's also their weakness. And on the other side, for some people, their opportunity or their ability to truly visualize something, it's not their strength. They can do it, but it really challenges them, right? And they're more sequential and they're more linear and they're more wordy, that type of thing. So the fact that everyone has this common experience of being able to be able to visualize, everyone also has a common experience of having no picture. And that's what I think when you said you go blank, basically what happened is the picture was taken away and you're lost. And if you think about what it is to be a little kid and be lost, or even maybe an adult, you're in a neighborhood, or you're in a city that you're not used to, and you're like, oh my gosh, the world is moving. I've got to know where to get off on this exit, or I don't know where to go. It's a terrible feeling. And reality is, it's not as awful as your body is reacting to, right? So that in and of itself is the disorientation, where our feelings, our emotions, any of those things are out of proportion to reality.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Again, we have to reiterate, it's unique. It's so unique to our clients. I had a young lady that I worked with that her disorientation, so it was related to dyslexia. And then how she experienced, she could start out and she was reading okay, but slowly she would read words, of course, that she did not have pictures to go along with them. And then the disorientations would start and they would increase over time to the extent the page would go totally blank for her. Mm-hmm. So what she was seeing was white. She couldn't see the letters anymore. I've also had students that they see stars, they see bright lights as the disorientations occur. I even had one student that we recognized his disorientations was a change in color. So when he was reading and he saw, I believe it was green and purple or green and blue. The text was actually green and blue. He could read it. And then as the disorientation started to occur, it would go to red and orange. When it was red and orange, or he started seeing the letters actually change colors, he could not read red or orange. Kelley, what do some of your clients tell you when they experience a disorientation, what it's like?
As far as like reading, or just in life?
Just in life.
Life. Okay. Because mostly what we recognize, or at least the kids that I work with or the adults I work with, what they recognize as their disorientation is they end up moving faster than the group around them. So if they're reading, and we're talking about reading, they're moving, their mind is moving faster than their mouth can. Or if they're reading silently, their eyes are moving faster than their mind can catch up. Okay. And so they have a disorientation with speed, and that has to do with their own personal energy. And we really work on that. That's one of the key things. Typically, as far as I haven't experienced, believe it or not, I haven't experienced a lot of the visual disorientations that some kids have experienced over, or adults have experienced through the dyslexic experience. What I'm more likely to see is when I give them a way of really experiencing reality, like really knowing reality, their general reaction is the room has all of a sudden gotten bigger and gotten brighter. I have had one student that said, "Oh, everything just got dim." He says, "I like it." Okay. Are you in a place that it feels good? In essence, what it means is I'm at peace. I feel good, right? I feel good. I'm more likely to have students tell me the physical manifestation that comes with the disorientation. If you can imagine, I have lots of stories about disorientation because I think I spent a lot of my childhood there. If you can imagine what it's like to be on a tire swing and spin all the way up and then have it let go and you're spin around, right? And if you were to stand up at that moment, the total, like you can feel your stomach just, right? You want to, seriously, you're ready to vomit. So that is more of an experience of what a lot of my students might have had. A lot of my students have motion sickness. They can't ride in a car.
Yes.
They cannot do it and without getting sick. And the coolest thing is to be able to help them to be able to control that without Dramamine, right? You don't need uphill. You just need to know where your center is. Know where your center is, and then you're moving through time at the same rate as the car. And so it's that type of thing. I remember, I think I told this story before about throwing a disc. I was in track in high school and totally not being aware of my body, where my body was, and thinking I was in the right spot where I actually wasn't in the right spot. And I threw the discus into the crowd because I was totally disoriented by my movement. And so that type of a feeling, it's also, if you can attach, we know that we can attach memories to, actually memories are totally attached to emotions. And so, or vice versa, emotions are attached to memories. And so if you've had a negative experience that's tied to something, thinking about that experience can totally give you the feeling as if you were there. And so those are all our trauma experiences or trauma responses to things. But that's not reality. It's just not.
I think the other thing that I run into, I have students at the beginning of the school year that need glasses. And then as the school year goes on, they don't need the glasses anymore. Mm-hmm. So the disorientations can also affect our eyesight. Usually the beginning of the school year is traumatic, or it is a time of stress for students that have learning differences. And so then, because the focus is out of balance with the physical body and the senses are not truly receiving the message that's being sent, it will affect eyesight. And then as the student becomes more comfortable with the setting, the peers, the process of the day, they no longer need the glasses. Mm-hmm. I've had that happen with students. I can remember myself being a kid. They were called SAR cards. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but that's been a long time ago. But I can remember those cards for whatever reason being so disorienting to me. And I literally was off into this space. I mean, I almost would have been the kid with the mouth hanging open and a little bit of, it's so disorienting to me to have to do those cards. And if I'm honest, I mean, that was back in probably first, second grade, something like that. I would end up just not even reading it and just guessing. And I got good enough at guessing. I managed to pass and could do the levels that I needed to do to get through, because I was actually a very good reader, but it was because I knew how to almost manipulate.
Mhm,
Because with those, you could recognize the words and then recognize the same words and the answers and be able to answer the questions. I think it's fair to say too, in the case of autism, I've had clients that almost kind of stay in a disorientation so they can experience their imagination as being real.
mhm.
Um, there was one particular young man that comes to mind, and he didn't play with the other kids at recess, and he was brought to me so he would interact with the other children. So when I asked what he did do at recess, he was off by himself and he was acting out a part of the movie. So if you saw him, but he was in it and it was very real to him.
Mhm, mhm.
We even have students that when they're in their disorientations or they're in their imaginary world, it truly does affect their physical body. So I had a student that didn't like recess, so he'd always ask to stay inside. And if you asked him what he was doing, one day he went to a beach and he had a wonderful time on the beach. Now he never left my classroom, but he actually got flushed. Like he looked like an individual. So that's where we can see, how impactful that alternate world can be on the individuals.
For sure. And the thing is that it's also that ability to disorient in that way. All right. So it also makes these individuals extremely creative,
Yeah.
extremely creative. And if you can capture that, right, what huge benefit that is, and helping the individual to be able to come right back so that they can communicate what it is that they're experiencing. The hard thing is that we are only aware of our own perceptions since we can't read each other's minds, right? Since we're not, we can have similar feelings and we can share that feeling, but the more we try to communicate, the only way we have to communicate at this point is through either the written word or the spoken word. And both of those require the ability to be completely at self, have to be completely in self. And
Yeah.
so when we are lost in thought, that's a form of disorientation, right? I'm lost in thought. I'm thinking about something. And you can watch people. And I do this when I'm working with an individual, any individual that wants to learn how do I retain information better? And it's to access your visual memory. Access, where do I remember things from? What physical place do I remember things from? And then help them to train themselves to put the information in, whether it's through notes or whatever. There's an actual technique for this, but to be able to put them in the place that they're going to be able to access them by their visual memory. Like for me personally, you can see, in fact, you probably can watch me when we're doing this podcast, right? You can see when Kelley's going to think. Where is Kelley going to think today? Most often it's going to be up on the right. You're going to see me go up. I'm grabbing some information and then I'm coming back so that I can talk to you. And so that's natural. And people have it there's a whole spectrum, right? We have a whole visual spectrum where we might go to access our information. And when we're going to do that, if I'm going to keep sharing with you and actually stay on topic, I better come back or I'm going to get caught in my thought and I'm going to take you down a little path. And my whole growing up, I say growing up into adulthood, seriously, people used to say, she's got good things to say, wait for it, because I was caught in my little world. But now, obviously, most of the times, I know how to get myself back. But that takes conscious effort to do that. But it's worth it. And I think that the cool thing is everybody can learn how to do that. But you got to recognize first and foremost, when is someone caught in that spot and how to bring them back, or how they need to know how to bring themselves back. Nobody wants to be told to bring yourself back. That's embarrassing and it's frustrating. And, it's like, who are you to tell me something? Right? I don't know.
Well, I agree with you 100% because, in professionally, when I'm with more in a professional setting, I know when my mind's going too fast because my words will get put together, I'll leave words out. However, when I'm with my kids, just hang out with your family. My children very early on learned to speak what they called mom speak, because we were just hanging out together, and it was just, I'm just me. It's all me. But when I just let my mind do what it naturally has an inclination to do, it goes incredibly fast. So I do not talk in complete sentences. I do not even talk in complete words.
Right.
And then to hear me tell a story, I might start in the middle of that story, jump back here, and then finish it. I don't necessarily sequentially tell that story. However, like you said, Kelley, we have learned, we are aware of how our minds works, and then we have learned how the rest of the world needs us to be.
Mm-hmm. I think that the cool thing is, and what I'm probably most thankful for in my journey in life, is that I have been able to start recognizing those disorientations, definitely within myself, right? But then in others, and helping the families to see, hey, your kiddo intellectually is just fine. They're caught. What we need to do is help them to know how to be present. And once we do that, life will take over in so many aspects. Life will take over. But we have to know how to be present. And in looking even at my own family, right? Because our children are obviously a genetic product of ourselves. But that being said, the things that we recognize of our kiddos, of the amount of time that they may have spent in their own little world, and what we could do to gently bring them back versus pointing out. Because anytime we're pointed out as being against the norm, when we don't know what the norm is, but we're pointed against the norm, then there's a little bit of a injury.
Yeah, it affects our self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And we, as parents, we don't mean to do that to our kids. We certainly would never want to do that to our kids, but we're caught in what we see as norm and what we don't see in our kids. And we forget that, guess what? We were there. Don't do that. We want so bad for our kids not to experience the things that we experienced when we were little that were hurtful to us, that we inadvertently are more likely to be the ones to start it. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Focus and Foundation with Tina and Kelley. We love to discuss relevant life issues, especially when they are directly associated with learning and focus, and our topic of today, which was disorientation. So we're hoping that you got a little bit out of today that you find helpful, that you found that you might want more information about. As you can imagine, we both are a plethora of information and happy to chat with you at any time. You'll find our contact information below, but we really, really, really would love to see this podcast grow. So if it's something that you find value in, we just would really appreciate it if you would like our podcast, if you'd like our channel. If you would comment, would be huge. We'd love to be able to share with you and share it with other people that you think would find benefit. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.